Citizen unrest rises in Guyana as the wait for election results continues. Students in Chile take Santiago's metro system to demand the president's resignation. And we take a look at the 7th anniversary of the death of the leader of the Bolivarian Revolution, Commander Hugo Chavez. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Confusion continues to mount in Guyana following Monday's election, as police have been deployed outside Georgetown to repress citizen protests. People have been expressing frustration and anger at the electoral body due to what many are calling election fraud. International pressure has also increased, which called for an official recount of the votes. On Thursday night, the Election Commission's released results, which international observers say are not credible. The offices of the Commission, known as GCOM, were then closed on Friday, with no access for the press, political parties, or observers' missions.
The unverified declaration was made yesterday. The SOPs, the statement of polls, which are the verified documents, the official documents from the Guyana Elections Commission, are still in that building behind us, in which they're giving us no access to. So we have no access to the official documents in order to find verified results of these elections. Those declarations that were made yesterday are completely false.
This is a country with 40% poverty, and instead of focusing on what is good for Guyana, they're focused on their own self-interest and holding on to power by any means necessary. And it's very unfortunate that we in Guyana, at a time when we have gotten so much natural resources and been blessed with humongous amount of resources in the oil sector, that we now dividing the country further, and this will set us back decades. And I can foresee, without the intervention of the international community, that Guyana will be under a full-blown dictatorship.
Our correspondent in Georgetown, Alejandro Kirk, has the latest.
Greetings from Lusignan. This is a locality near Georgetown, about half an hour away to the east. And here it's a place where the Progressive People's Party, the opposition party now in Guyana, wins by a margin of over 95%. The stallment in the counting of the votes, the rigging that seemingly took place in Georgetown at the Electoral Commission has created a tense situation in this neighborhood, in this area, because these people are angry, they are protesting, and they have erected barricades, they have stopped the traffic, and the police dispersed them a few moments ago. You can see that the fire in the back is still going. The police has been firing tear gas, and these people are not used to this kind of repression. What is happening now in Georgetown is that the counting of Region 5, we were told, started again this afternoon. But the crucial counting is Region 4, where the majority of people support the ruling coalition of President George Granger. The fraud, if that happened, is what happened, took place in that region. The counting of votes stopped when they were counting about 300 of the 800 polling stations, and they stopped and declared the ruling coalition, APNU, as the winner. This is what created this tension. Also, it has ethnic connotations. Afro-Guyanese generally support the government. Indo-Guyanese support the People's Progressive Party. So the winner seems to have been the opposition party, the European Community, the CARICOM, the Commonwealth, the Carter Center, and now even the State Department of the United States is demanding a recount of votes so that there is a fair and free result of this election, and the government that emerges from here is legitimate and stable. You cannot say that this violence has erupted into a civil war, but for the local standards, this is pretty much.
Thank you, Alejandro, for that report. The crisis surrounding Guyana's election took a dramatic turn on Thursday night. There was a chaos as opposition leaders, including PPP General Secretary Barak Jagdeo and international observers, tried to get into the GCOM chairwoman's office after no one had seen her all day, but they were blocked by police. She was later found on the floor of her office. Following Thursday's incident, several international organizations and diplomats issued statements, noting that the tabulation of the results for Region 4 was not carried out according to the law. They say these results were not credible and called on GCOM to verify the results based on official statements of polls. We'll take a short break now. Join us again in Welcome back. High school and college students in Chile have shut down most of Santiago's metro stations, staging protests against the government. Students organized over social media to hold the so-called mochilas on Friday to demand the resignation of President Sebastian Piñera. This comes after months of anti-government protests that have been met with brutal police repression. The massive protests started last October in these very metro stations, initially against a price hike in metro fares. Since then, citizen unrest has grown to demand the removal of the president and the drafting of a new constitution. The former president of Brazil, Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva, has blasted far-right President Jair Bolsonaro as grotesque. Lula was speaking at Geneva's press club in Switzerland.
I am living my life with a lot of willingness to fight. Because Brazil doesn't deserve such a thing as grotesque as Bolsonaro governing our country. It doesn't deserve it.
A leader of Brazil's homeless workers movement in the state of Minas Gerais, Daniquel Oliveira, was assassinated by military police in the city of Uberlândia. Daniquel was shot in the back of the head early on Thursday. Residents blocked a highway in protest and were met with repression, which included rubber bullets and tear gas. The community says that the government has continued to criminalize their movement, which fights for the basic right to housing, adding that Daniquel was murdered in cruel, cold, and public manner. In Mexico, the parents of the 43 missing Ayotzinapa students held a meeting with President Andrés Manuel López Obrador and the heads of the Attorney General's office and of the Supreme Court of Justice.
Seeking an update on the progress of the investigations into the disappearance of their children, the mothers and fathers of the 43 missing Ayotzinapa students once again went to the National Palace.
The meeting we had today was very important, as the previous government gave us 4 years of pure lies, but we have faith and hope that we will reach the truth.
After the meeting with President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, the President of the Supreme Court of Justice and the Attorney General, the lawyer in the case offered his impressions of the meeting.
To resolve this issue of serious human rights violations, extraordinary mechanisms are needed, and in that virtue, the involvement of the entire Mexican state is important. We have heard those voices that say the judiciary lacks independence, but we've seen that it doesn't.
The families delivered a document in which they propose a roadmap for the next few months. They are also asking to have more information or clarification of the facts in September.
Some investigations are already underway. Obviously, we're not informed of the progress, but because it involves legal proceedings that they are currently carrying out, and for security reasons, they can't inform us.
In addition, they asked for the participation of the Financial Intelligence Unit in the investigations involving high officials from the previous 6 years, including the prosecutor Jesus Murillo Caram and the former head of the Criminal Investigation Agency, Tomás Terón.
This is a fight against impunity. It's a start for state institutions to work properly and for the law to stand above them all.
They brought forward the date for the next meeting with the President to April the 6th. However, work continues within the Presidential Commission for the case, as do the demonstrations in the streets to demand justice and truth.
This week, the Bolivian city of El Alto celebrated its 35th anniversary, but also lamented the death of the 11 official victims of last November's Sencata gas plant massacre. The representative of the Permanent Assembly of Human Rights for the city confirmed that the victim, Emilio Fernandez, passed away from his injuries on Wednesday morning. Residents and human rights defenders said that the victims of the massacre did not receive immediate or proper medical attention to treat their bullet wounds. For their part, the de facto government threatened to persecute them for alleged terrorism. The Vice President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, has launched a global campaign called Sanctions Are a Crime, which will denounce the damage caused by economic sanctions on everyday people. During the news conference, Rodriguez highlighted that Venezuela has presented dozens of reports to the International Criminal Court proving that unilateral sanctions by the U.S. break international law and should be considered crimes against humanity.
On February 13, Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza went to the International Criminal Court in The Hague to once again present our case to prosecutors. Venezuela is living through a very particular situation when it comes to international law. For the first time, there is a case being presented where we have shown that unilateral, coercive measures that today make up a fundamental part of the foreign policy of the United States are crimes against humanity. We presented an extensive report where we documented all the actions carried out by the U.S. and the confessions made by their officials about how these sanctions directly hurt our citizens.
The official for the state of Táchira, Freddy Bernal, says that the Colombian paramilitaries plan to use explosives to carry out a number of attacks against Venezuelan residents of the border area, but that the armed forces were able to intercept the Los Rastrojos gang during an ongoing military operation.
We have given a decisive blow to criminal structures. In just 1 month of the operation, Bolivarian Shield 2020, our Bolivarian National Armed Forces and Citizen Security have achieved the following objective: the capture of 37 Colombian paramilitaries of the Rastrojos gang and the neutralization of 12 criminals during a confrontation with the armed forces. There is also the largest capture of explosive materials, 650 kilos of explosives made in Colombia, where they prepare a terrorist attack against the armed forces and against the Venezuelan people. We all know that the Rastrojos are allied with the Venezuelan opposition. In that same operation, we dismantled a laboratory that processed cocaine, seizing more than 11,000 liters of acetone and the so-called kitchens and the ovens to elaborate cocaine paste. More than 400,000 liters of gasoline that were in clandestine tanks and boats were destroyed. More than 50 vehicles, among them trucks, motorcycles, and even ambulances belonging to the criminal gang, Los Rastrojos. And in only a month, we have seized more than half a ton of cocaine, marijuana, and even heroin. There is also Colombian military uniforms and other elements which point to the direct participation of the criminal groups within the army of Colombia. And that is why we demand that military authorities, the police or Iván Duque, tell the world why is it that every time there is a coup attempt in Venezuela, the Colombian army is directly linked in these criminal actions. In the end, I congratulate our armed forces.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back. Clashes between migrants and Greek security forces broke out on Friday at Greece's borders with Turkey as the migrants tried to enter the European nation. Security forces used tear gas, stun grenades, and water cannons to push back the migrants who had been stranded at the border for 6 days. Turkish officials claim that the repression left 1 dead, but Greek authorities have denied this. Thousands of refugees and other migrants have been trying to get into Greece after Turkey declared its previously guarded borders with Europe were open. The number of people with the COVID-19 virus has risen sharply in Iran, with 1,234 new cases in the last few days. 124 people have died in Iran as a result.
Until today, there are 4,747 confirmed cases of COVID-19 infection. that out of 4,747 people, 913 have recovered and discharged from hospitals.
A ceasefire is ongoing in Syria's Idlib province after a summit between Russian President Vladimir Putin and his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Our correspondent in Damascus, Hisham Wanous, has the details.
On Thursday, the presidents of Russia and Turkey, Vladimir Putin and Recep Tayyip Erdogan, held a summit after which they agreed to a ceasefire in the Syrian province of Idlib, the last terrorist stronghold in the country. The ceasefire came into effect in the early hours of Friday. So far, there's been relative calm in the fighting zone of Idlib, as the Syrian Arab Army stays ready to respond to any violation by the terrorists of the ceasefire, as has happened before. Both the Russian and Turkish presidents agreed to create two safe corridors on both sides of the M4 road linking Idlib and the coastal province of Latakia, 6 kilometers wide, and they also said that from March 15, Russian and Turkish forces would make joint patrols on the highway. It should be highlighted that, according to experts, this agreement does not require the withdrawal of Syrian troops from the areas recently liberated in Idlib, which total in 215 locations over an area of 1,900 square kilometers, a consolidation of the achievements made by the Syrian Arab Army in the fight against terrorists. The agreement also ratifies the commitment of both countries to the sovereignty and independence of Syria and therefore the need to continue the fight against terrorists. President Bashar al-Assad also spoke about the determination of Damascus to continue fighting until the liberation of Idlib from extremists and foreign forces is achieved. He also said Syrian forces will continue military operations in the northeast region where U.S. troops are illegally present.
Thank you, Hisham, for that report. Post-electoral uncertainty continues in Guinea-Bissau as the military has been deployed across the capital, Bissau. Tensions have been rising in the West African nation since last December, following a disputed runoff election. Results show that the opposition leader, Umaru Sissoko Embalo, won a majority of votes, but the ruling party candidate, Domingo Simões Pereira, denounced the result as fraudulent and pushed for a recount, taking the case to the Supreme Court. However, the court has not been able to settle the dispute. In response, this week, Embalo conducted his own presidential swearing ceremony and moved himself into the presidential palace, further increasing tensions.
We can no longer tolerate these delays because of political problems. It's always the people who pay the consequences. They don't make the slightest sacrifice for our well-being. They just tire us out, and we get nothing out of it.
From my point of view, there will never be peace in waging war. I had hoped that this was behind us. The single-party period in the 1980s, it must remain behind us.
With great emotion, the people of Venezuela commemorated the 7th anniversary of the death of Commander Hugo Chavez on Thursday, a man who changed the political landscape of Latin America and gave power back to people who had historically been forgotten.
The tears do not stop flowing. Hugo Chavez has become an integral part of the lives and the souls of Venezuelans.
How could we not shed a tear when we are in front of Commander Hugo Chavez, the man who awoke the Venezuelan people, the man we owe so much to, the man who gave everything for our country? A tear is too little for our commander. We will always love him. Long live Chavez.
7 years after his death, his spiritual connection with the people remains intact.
It feels like only yesterday he was still with us. It's impossible to forget him. It feels like I lost a son. The entire country misses him. After he came to power, I felt reborn. He gave us confidence. He gave us dignity. He gave us our homeland, which before it was like it wasn't ours.
The 4F Mountain Barracks, where the body of the leader of the Bolivarian Revolution rests, is brimming with history. The body is guarded by soldiers who honor his legacy and have vowed to maintain the place where history was made on February 4th, 1992. The day a group of soldiers rose up against the system, led by Commander Chavez. It wasn't a usual coup, but a rebellion that paved the way so years later, Hugo Chavez could be elected president.
That rebellion taught us the value of being Venezuelan, and we started to value our homeland, a homeland that was neglected, forgotten, full of people living in poverty, of inequality. That was what Hugo Chavez inherited and what he fought against.
At 4:25 p.m. on the dot, a cannon was fired to remember the exact moment when Commander Chavez passed away. A delegation of Venezuela's indigenous people also paid homage to the leader who always defended their rights. And in the end, the event came to a close with a tribute by one of Commander Chavez's own grandchildren.
And with this, we come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories in our website at telesurenglish.net. And don't forget to join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Thank you for watching.